Thank you for asking.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and thanks for being here, for joining us. Again, the name of this group is called Finding Your Own Inner Teacher. And I guess one of the things I was going to ask during the evening, how people are finding this group for doing exactly that, to begin to develop trust in themselves as the only teacher they really need, which is really the truth. I mean, if you attended the Endless Seeking conference, which a lot of you did, I know that you know that you already have everything. You know, it's right here, right now, and it's in your willingness to just be present where everything is given to you, because you already have everything. And I'll start off just by asking a very quick question. Is there anyone here who is affected at all by the Hurricane Ian at all, or you know somebody and you have some thoughts about it? I know that Myrna's in Florida, but she's also fortunately on the East Coast, where it's not as gloomy as on the West Coast. Is there anyone at all who want to share anything?
I have a friend who is going from Maine back to her home in St. Pete, which is the direct path. And I don't know what she's doing. She hasn't told me whether she's going to stop and not go, because she's been in Maine for 4 months. And then she goes back to Florida for the winter. But I don't know if she's delaying her trip or not. Seems to me it would be wise to delay it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Her car, she puts her car on a van. So everything would have to be changed. But the van might not want to do it, you know. So I haven't talked to her. I didn't know if I really wanted. She's 81. I didn't know if I really wanted to bother her.
All right. I have a very good friend in Tampa who I asked her a couple of days ago, what are you going to do? She said, well, I don't really know. But as of this morning, she did evacuate and moved into her sister's home, which is 25 miles from Tampa, which I think is a pretty good bet, or at least a lot safer than being in Tampa right now.
Yeah.
And on its new course, it's hitting supposedly Sarasota and Fort Myers, which is below Tampa. And we'll go right through Orlando, which is, as you all know, is Disney World. So watch out, Mickey Mouse. Okay. Is there anyone else? Hi, Lynn. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Rigo, Vanna.
My brother lives in Tampa.
Is there anyone that has any thoughts or anything they want to bring to the room this evening? Anyone at all?
Well, yeah, you talked about the hurricane, and one of the things I think about when people have to evacuate, or what about their pets? Very often they can't bring their pets with them. And I remember when the hurricane hit in New Orleans, and I never even thought about that until I realized there's an organization called the Tri-County Humane Society right here in Florida, and they flew to New Orleans to rescue the pets that were locked away. And there was so many, and we don't think about that, but that's something that I do that comes to mind. And I think to myself, I have a 16-year-old dog, and if they told me to evacuate, I think I would stay right here with my dog. I don't think I could leave him. I really don't. I take my chances. I don't know. They're like little children, really. Yeah. So I just had to bring that up.
I have my little child Happy right on my lap right now.
Happy, I know Happy. I see him on your lap sometimes.
He's right here.
Yeah.
I didn't raise him up high enough. I just want to go over today's lesson, which some of you are aware of, lesson 270, which I did an hour with Myrna here earlier, and we did look at that as a very powerful lesson. I want to go into it just a little bit deeper. I will not use the body's eyes today, and Kenneth Wapnick's comments on it which I'll put up here as well. I always go to Kenneth for the comment on the daily lesson, and that is your body's eyes must first perceive specialness and differences, good and evil, one or the other. Seeing your error at this point, you can meaningfully ask Jesus for help to look through his eyes, which is the spiritual eye, our spiritual eye, even though he uses Jesus, but it's our own spiritual eye. Or Holy Spirit, same spiritual eye, Holy Spirit, Jesus, it's all the same. So you're looking from the light instead of from the dark. Now, I just want to point out just one thing, which is very important. It says you must first perceive specialness and differences. And that means instead of thinking that it's about the eyes, it's not about the eyes, even though he uses the word eyes in the lesson. It's about the entire ego thought system, which is about the mind, the eyes, and the ears, which is everything over here. And everything over here is certainly making me, Dove, special. So when I worry about something, I'm worried about me. When I'm worried about if I'm in the path of the hurricane, I'm thinking about me. I'm not thinking about all. If I'm thinking about all, I'm not really using the body's eyes. If I'm thinking about me, I am definitely using the body's eyes and brain and ears. In other words, I'm looking at things from I am special. I am different. I am separate. I'm apart. I'm good. Those people over there probably deserve to get caught in the hurricane, but not me. So I have to plan my way of escape. I happened to mention the same thing either last week or 2 weeks ago on that thing that was sent to me by I think it was Cindy that sent it to me. It was on code 27. I think that is from Robert. Actually, it was Bill Free talking about code 27, not code 27, cameo 27 from Robert Perry's book, and it speaks about Helen, who, when there was a crisis in her life, that she thought she would be separated from her husband. I think his name is Lewis. Correct me if I'm wrong. All she was thinking about is how she and Lewis can stay together, and instead of stepping back and looking at the whole thing and realizing that she really is safe. She really is safe. And Lewis is safe. And it didn't really matter if they were separated for a couple of days by a strike and things like that. And as Bill Free wrote it up, she either was into her specialness, which is basically, he looked at it as a sin, or she's into the atonement, which is what this Course in Miracles is all about. Jesus says, I'm not really interested in the philosophy of this course or the words or the precise meanings. I'm only interested in atonement or correction of perception. He tells you that in the introduction to the clarification of terms on page 77 of the Manual for Teachers. So if you're doing this course for trying to stay, above water, keep your head above water, that's still the ego studying the course to stay safe, to play safe, to survive. But if you're doing the course as Jesus is giving it to you, you're doing it to recognize that what you think is true, what you believe is true, and every belief has a lie, is really the ego's belief system that I'm listening to. So when he uses the words, I will not use the body's eyes today, he's really also talking about your belief system. The eyes of the body is projecting your thoughts out onto the world, and definitely the ego is into survival. That's the only thing the ego is interested in is survival. which is what basically Charles Darwin said. The human race, Homo sapien, is into survival of the fittest. I mean, which is okay, except that that's not what the course says. You know, the course says you're not a body. You don't have to survive. You are eternal. You are infinite. You are unlimited. You are the Holy Son of God Himself. And the thought that you have to do something to survive is not what God creates. God doesn't create survivors or bodies or junk, things that die. Are there any thoughts on that at all? Lynn?
Hello, family. I'm going to be doing a funeral in a Catholic church on October 6th. And fortunately, the priest is going to do all the Catholic stuff, and I come in afterwards. And my focus is going to be on how she still is here. Just, her love didn't leave with her body. And death doesn't take away people, away the love. I'm grateful to say I had my best friend. I thought when he died, I would jump in the grave with him. And I was shocked as hell to realize he didn't go anywhere. Yeah, really, I was kind of blown away by that. And I'm so grateful. And, but it's like, sometimes I'm combing my hair. It's my mother combing my hair. So nobody really left. Nothing real can be threatened.
That's true. That's true.
I want to add on to that is, I don't know who said this, but one day we were talking about Alzheimer's. And I don't know who said it, whether it was Bill or Lisa or Rupert or something, but the question came up and they said, their essential being is there. It's always there, no matter who they are. And so I spent the weekend with my girlfriend who's 60 and has Alzheimer's. And I've known her for a long time, 30 years. And she doesn't talk much, but what I tried to do is I tried to see that essential nature in her and to see what a loving, kind, forgiving person she always was. And there was at one point, she rarely makes a complete sentence, but I said, we were having dinner and I said, Linda, you taught me something. And she looked at me and she goes, what did I teach you? And that just warmed my heart, that sparked that place in her that was the real person, the person that was constantly giving. And so what you were just saying about people dying and they don't die, it's the same thing when they're still here and they look like they're dying because, they can't relate. Her husband was amazing with her all weekend. I never left her side. And the love that they showed between each other was always the love I saw. And he sees her as that same loving person as he's taking care of her. And it breaks your heart. But she's not dead. She's just like that person that his body was dead, but he's still alive. And I think that sticks with me a lot. The idea that we never die, that our essential self, we're eternal. So thanks for sharing that.
And thank you for sharing that. When you share that and brought up, I don't know how many remember Richard Bach, who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull, which was obviously it sold a million books back in the day. I guess it was back in the 70s and 80s.
Mm-hmm.
He also wrote another book called Illusions, which is much more recent. And he also wrote another book, which very few people know about, but it's one of the books he authored. It's called There's No Such Place as Far Away. It's a very short book, and I've given it out to a number of people who lost loved ones. And what it says essentially is you can speak and be with the one that you think is missing or lost, or you wish you could speak to again, simply by bringing them into the center of your mind. And when you vision them in the center of your mind, whatever it is that you say to them at that point, they are there with you. They are there with you. And that's a book called There Is No Such Place as Far Away. And that's really the same thing that Lynn is saying, same thing that I think that you just said. Are there any thoughts on any of that? If not, no. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
I did want to add something, that, the faith that we have in those that we loved, that they're still with us. I mean, I've experienced many wonderful events when my husband died, my sister died, and I take them seriously. Just little signs that I call it that can't be denied. So I have a wholehearted belief that that people don't die, and our loved ones are always with us, and they remain with us, and I think that we can even heal them after they die. If we can heal ourselves too in continuing the relationship and continuing the love relationship that we had with them. I could almost feel, my husband, when he passed away, was very fearful, and I somehow began to feel his spirit. And somehow through that, I was able to embody the feeling that he was no longer in fear. I could feel it, that by my continued love, it gave me comfort in feeling that within him as well. So I'm a big believer in this.
Okay, thank you for that, Myrna. As you were sharing, Lynn, do you want to say something? Go ahead.
When my friend died, the next day I spent all day just being with him. And, I told him if he ever needed a body, he can use mine. And I went to a yoga class that week, and I told my teacher, I'm bringing somebody with me. And, he left his body, but he's with me doing yoga. My yoga teacher understood. Yeah. What a blessing.
There's a paragraph from the Course in Miracles which I want to bring to your attention. I put it on the chat just now, from text chapter 10, section 3, which says the same thing we're all saying here now, but it's in a very concise form. I posted it on Open Minds a couple of days ago. And this is what it says. And those people who are doing the affirmative prayer group, which I'm doing along with, I know Rico is doing and Lynn is doing, I don't know if anyone else here is doing it, but this kind of reminds me of the affirmative prayer format. This is what it says. It's on the chat. It says, heal your brothers simply. I like the word simply, by accepting God for them, accepting God for them. So we're accepting God. And what is God? Is God mean, something I don't, up somewhere else? No, God is life. God is life. God is love. God is peace. You're accepting the peace of God for them. You says your minds are not separate. Now that's the whole Course of Miracles. That's accepting the atonement. Your minds are not separate, and God has only one channel for healing because he has but one son. God's remaining communication link with all of his children joins them together and them to him. So he has one communication, open communication channel D, as they used to say in Star Trek, and he's speaking to all as one, because there's only one. And then it goes on to say, to be aware of this is to heal them. Now the next part of this I love. To be aware of this is to heal them because it's the awareness that no one is separate, so no one is sick. And I think that that's pretty much what I heard Myrna basically saying. If you see somebody is sick, you're seeing them as separate, you're seeing them as different. That's the ego. That's the ego's thought system. Well, that person is sick, they're depressed, they're angry, they're this, they're that. No, that's their avatar. That's their test crash dummy. But it's not what God creates. God doesn't create test crash dummies or avatars.
Can I ask a question
Yes,
about death
yes.
again? And I believe this too. I think that when somebody dies and we don't let go, and we continually feel the heartache, and we cry, and we just don't let it go. And do you believe that that this? I feel that they are sad too. They don't want to see us this way. So I give it a conscious effort. When somebody dies, I love, my sister passed away, I only sent her love, and I really refused to hold on to the grief, because I thought that would extend, that she wouldn't want to see me that way, and that she would feel that grief. Do you believe that because we are so connected that
Well, yes and no. As it happens, the genesis of this group, or the origin of this group, started a year and a half ago. I know that Cindy is aware of that because she was there at the beginning. It was originally, there was a gal named Rosalind Rourke, and she had lost her daughter about 3 years ago, and she went through a lot of mourning. Some of you know I lost my wife about 18 months ago, and I went through 3 days of mourning. And then I happened to pass by the wedding vows that I wrote 40 years ago when John Mundy married us, and it's sitting right here on a bedroom wall, and the whole wedding vow gets down to "we are one." So I was going through some really bad time on day 3 of after she left, and I happened to pass this. I said, wait a minute, if I wrote 40 years ago before we were married, "we are one," why do I think that we're not one now? And all of a sudden, I had a shift that the mourning just went away. And it was under those circumstances that I did meet Rosalind, and she was also coming out of her thing. Took her a bit longer, and we decided to do a group for people who are into mourning, to see how we can end mourning. And that's how this group actually started a year and a half ago with Cindy's help. So I just want to say that it's funny that we're talking about this. There's really no real reason for mourning other than the ego chooses to be sad because it lost. And in truth, loss is impossible. That which is real cannot be threatened or lost. That which is unreal doesn't even exist. Herein lies the peace of God. Now, to say that to someone who just lost somebody is obviously not the thing to do. But it's for your own thought. I was, my first teacher before I ever heard of A Course in Miracles was a guy named Werner Erhard. And he once was in Madison Square Garden. There was about, I think there's 18,000 people were there to listen to him. And he has 5 daughters. And someone asked him the question, because he was talking about this subject, and he said, how long would it take you to mourn if someone called you right now and told you that one of your daughters just died? And he thought about it. He didn't think about it. He paused, and then he said, it would be over in a minute. Now, I know you're probably saying that's ridiculous. a woman named Carolyn Mace. Some of you may know who Carolyn Mace is. She's a wonderful teacher in the spiritual community. She actually did a whole workshop on mourning. And I listened to it on audio. And she says, listen, everything is up to you. There's some people take 10, 20, 30 years to mourn. That's fine. Some people will take 1 or 2 days to mourn. That's fine. And some are in between, a couple of days. You know, the amount of time you want to mourn is up to you. You know, and no one makes it, whatever you do, wrong. But if you make it your lifetime thing, and I'm speaking about when I was a child, my own mother, when she lost my oldest brother in World War II, from that time in April of 1945 until she passed, she was basically in mourning. And I'm talking about a period of some 30 so years. So you know, you and the mourning obviously includes anger at God. It includes not giving total love to your own family. So basically, the ego's in charge. Basically, the ego's in charge. There's very little laughter. There's not a lot of love. I was a kid when it all happened. Okay. Are there any thoughts on anything that was just said? Hi, Cindy. Yes. I see your hand up. I see Zulma's hand up. Who wants to go? I don't know.
Go ahead, Zoma. I can go after you.
Zulma, go ahead.
I get caught on that statement that I lost somebody. I didn't lose anybody. And I hear it over and over and over again. When I lost my so-and-so and I lost this and I lost that. And that's not a sentence in my vocabulary anymore. I didn't lose anybody. When my mother was for the just few hours that she spent in what would have been hospice, they gave me a little book titled Gone From My Sight. And I use those words a lot. Not gone, I just can't see her. It's not that she's not physical anymore. She's metaphysical. And I hold on to that. And I've had reasons and experiences to believe truly that not gone at all. So I don't use those words that I lost somebody. That in itself is sad to me, for me. I'm complete.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Go ahead, Cindy.
I've been waiting for the words. And this is coming from someone who's a trained psychic. So I used to talk to dead people for a living, right? One of my recognitions now is, you know, in the Course in Miracles and in the other teachings and in my experience, is that this identification with my personality is part of the dream. It's part of the dream. Cindy is a rise and fall in consciousness, and so is everything I see. Every relationship I've ever had takes place only in my mind. It's not in reality, and I've proven that over and over and over again with my children and the other people in my lives. I don't have a relationship with another ever. I only have a relationship with what I believe another is. It is my understanding and acceptance through the teachings of like Rupert Spira and other, that the personality doesn't survive. You know, the personality is part of the body, and we flow back into the oneness, and a new being may be created that has some of the, you know, characteristics, but I was taking a lot of notes and sinking in, and there's a Buddhist quote that I love: when the wave realizes she is the ocean, all her fear must vanish. That requires the understanding that we've never left source, and source doesn't have individual personalities. So I had, my boyfriend died when I was 22 years old, and it took me decades to recognize that that's a right. Like I am not the being who lost Ricky when she was 21 years old. I'm 60, but I held the memory, the thoughts, the stories. We're all just love. There is no relationship, whether it's we're in the body or the body's come and go. And so I've been working on it a lot, and I've been sitting and listening, and man, I spent years and years and years very successfully talking to dead people. And I now recognize that I was experiencing thoughts and consciousness and pulling them and creating healing moments. But it's not useful on my path right now to believe that the personality survives the last breath of a body. It sinks back into the formlessness. And what I have at that point is the same thing I actually had when they were in the body, because all relationships, all special relationships, take place in thought and imagination, never in reality. So that's my current understanding. Whether it's true or not, I have no idea. Ask me after I'm dead.
Totally agree with that. I'm thinking my relationship with my wife at the morning was the loss of the comfort. I use the word comfort because my wife was such a comfort.
I'm not hearing you, Dove. Is that just me?
Why is
No,
that?
your volume went way down.
Okay, okay. I was talking about what I realized, what I was mourning was the loss, because my wife was such a comfort to me that I lost that comfort. Now, if you look at it from A Course in Miracles point of view, all of our special relationships are simply a shabby substitute for the comfort and for the love that we get from our Father who created us. So the ego is simply substituting, well, my wife was such a comfort. I miss her so much. But we're really saying, God is not a comfort to me. I mean, my wife was a comfort to me. I mean, that's the ego's entire thing, making one thing better than another, making one thing separate from another. There's no separation. That's the only mistake that needs to be corrected. The Course says this in actual words. The only mistake that needs correction is the belief in separation.
The quote, it's a Thich Nhat Hanh quote, and it reads, "When the wave realizes she is the ocean, all her fear must vanish," which is another way of saying we never left our source. And if we never left, if we're just an extension of our source, so is everyone we see. And so I've started to think about all beings that I love, all beings that I interact with as waves, which means, one wave doesn't identify itself as special. One wave doesn't try to say, 20 years ago, I looked like, do you know what I mean? We're all just waves in consciousness. It's been extraordinarily useful for me.
Okay. I want you to find that thing where it says the only mistake that needs correction. Can't find it. But does anyone
I'll
have
find it.
anything else to share? Go ahead.
No, I just said I'll find it.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Keith, thank you for coming. You were sharing last time about talking to your son. Has there been any healing in that area, Keith?
He has. I was speaking with my wife, and subsequent to that conversation that I had on this call last week, you and I met up for a little bit, and it was right. It kind of resonated with me, and I was just telling my wife that we shouldn't seek to change him. It's because he may not be fitting into the mold of how the school administrators want him to be. He still needs to develop his personality. So we've been just kind of pushing back and being more of like, go too far outside of boundaries, but we've been more so allowing him to be him and to just grow and develop the way he's meant to be. So, and it takes a lot of pressure off us as well. We're not feeling like our responsibility is to push society's norms onto him and make him fit into this. It's been a big relief. So,
Well, thank you, Keith, for sharing that. Yeah.
which was, you were saying that one of the quotes is "Seek not to change no one" or something like that, right?
Right. The
so-
line says seek,
Seek not to change the world, change your mind about the world.
well, actually, it's a different one. Oh, let him be who he is. Seek not to make of love an enemy. Okay, that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let
Well,
him.
one other thing, if I may. Oh,
Sure,
yep,
sure,
sorry.
sure, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Talking about earlier, I recently, my grandmother recently transitioned in July. I was very close to her. It was, for 1 year, everything just happened really quickly. She was like, very avid reader, learner, text, email, and everything. And then she just had a fall, and then she went to a nursing home for 1 year, and we had to put her on a feeding tube, and then it was just like a gradual decline. Think about like where I see her now, or like what she's doing, or what happened to her. So hearing what Cindy was saying about her, just like the personality leaving, because she had a lot of issues, if you will, like depression when she was here, and bad. So it's almost like, for me, I feel like her transition, for her and me in some weird way, was a bit of a relief, because I felt like she no longer had to really, not happy. So
Yeah.
she's just kind of transitioning.
Right. At the end of life, the quality of life is so reduced that people really just want to say, I just want to let go at that point. And there's many people who actually ask if the plug can be pulled and things of that nature. Yvonne, I see your head shaking. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So
Yeah,
my
my mum.
I'm sorry. Go
Wait,
ahead.
can you hear me? Sorry, my mum died in February this year, so this is quite a relevant conversation. And even this morning, I was finding some tears there. That it was under a very traumatic situation, because we have only just in this country in the last week or so let go of a lot of our COVID regulations. So a death under those under restrictions was quite was very, very challenging, and so there was some trauma for me. I was very interested with Cindy when you were saying you were having psychic contact with people, and realize that was ego.
Well, ego is a term for collective thoughts, beliefs, and ideas, right? It's not really personal. So
No.
even beings on a deathbed that are suffering, it's not their true essence, it's just this mask or the story, right? So it's not who they are.
No.
So I was a trained psychic, and I had amazing experiences, but all we were really doing in that moment was, well, I don't know, but my sense now is what we're doing is we're psychics are tapping into the collective consciousness and tapping into the being they're with, and reading the stories of the people that are in front of them. and creating these very powerful readings, but not because personalities, like there's no part of me that really has this sense. And I had a beautiful, close to near death experience, and all I had was this peace. There was no longer a sense of Cindy. There was no longer a sense of needing to take care of problems. That wasn't it. There was just this choice and peace, whatever. Like I didn't build a story around it. What I have is this overwhelming, expansive, peaceful joy, knowing that whatever occurs is okay. That's my memory of that period of time. And that has stayed with me. So I recognize that psychic readings are more about tapping into that collective consciousness, not about tapping into a personality that has survived and is still suffering or holding on to and still need, like all of that. And I've studied so many different traditions too, that no matter all these different places in the world have all their own stories. And just the fact that the past lives and future, there's so many of them. If nothing else, one can know that that's not true, because truth is true. It's not complicated. You know, when the wave realizes she is the ocean, all her fear must vanish. And when a wave's time is over, it just becomes part of the ocean. It may be part of a new wave, but it has no memory, and it doesn't take on the problems of the last wave. Do you know what I mean? That doesn't mean we don't heal, like all the things Myrna, we're saying is really accurate, because I'm also living in the space of desiring to die before I die. So all of my pictures, all of my memories, all of the special relationships that I have are still alive and valid in me, which speaks to everything that Dove was saying. So when I go through my mourning, when I go through my healing, when I go through my release of their suffering, I'm cleaning up my insides. Does that
Yes.
does that feel right?
Thank you. I couldn't quite figure who you were connecting with in your psychic, or
Do you
what
get
you
it
were
now?
connecting with. So
Yeah,
that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to point out that Zoom posted what it is I was saying about here earlier. The reason I couldn't find it is I thought the word mistake was there. It says, a sense of separation from God is the only lack. So they don't use the word mistake, is the only lack that you really need to correct. So when we lose somebody, we feel there's something missing. You know, the words lack or missing is really what suffering is all about. The end of seeking, which a lot of you attended that conference. It was Tom Das who actually used the word. He said, suffering is really another word for lacking. What you think you lack or what you have lost, that is our suffering. And of course, if you're in this world and you think you're a body, you think that you lack or you lost what it is that you once were, for sure. So if you're in a body, you are suffering. You don't have to be suffering because you have a pain in your hand or in your head or a headache or a heart attack. No, if you think that you're missing something, you're already in suffering. No wonder the Hebrews have the word shalom, shalom. And shalom means peace. And peace, of course, is the goal of the course. And in the Kabbalah, the word shalom has a much deeper meaning. Jesus was really like a member of the Kabbalah. He was in the scene that, so they were the Kabbalists or the people that saw everything as a symbol. So even though we use peace as well, I just want peace. No, peace means nothing is missing, nothing is broken. Everything is perfect, exactly the way it is. Nothing is missing, nothing is broken. Are there any thoughts on that? Talking about, I went to, yesterday was the Rosh Hashanah holiday that the Jews do once a year. They go to temple, and I haven't been in service since before COVID. So I missed the last couple of years. And I went yesterday for the first time in a couple of years. And I heard a very short sermon, but I just happened to want to mention it because I was very surprised at, first of all, his topic. He's only about 35 years old. He has a family of 4 or 5 people, of kids. And his topic, which he started out with, was on abortion. And I did not know until yesterday, for the first time, I'm 82 years old, that in the Jewish religion, abortion is considered a sin. And I mean, I know that in Christianity, which is why we have this whole thing about Roe v. Wade. I know it comes from conservative Christianity, but it really comes from the Old Testament. That the Old Testament thought that life begins in the womb, and that every life has a mission to accomplish in this world, and to abort that mission is not any different than an astronaut who has a mission and they abort the mission. We're not going out into outer space. No, you come into this world to fulfill a mission. So the story he tells is a true story. The story he tells was a member of the Jewish Knesset in Israel went to the high rabbi of all the rabbis and says, listen, I'd like to get an exemption. My wife and I already have a child, and we'd rather not have, she's pregnant, we'd rather not have the next one. So he says, I really can't give you that exemption. He says, if you want to stay true to your faith, then have the child. He says, you remind me of a couple that I knew many years ago. And they came to me and they said the same thing, that they were going through a rough patch. They didn't have money, that they thought that if they only stayed with one child, that child would have more toys, or a better education, go to so he said, I had to say no to them too. And he says, I just want you to know the child that they finally had was you. That's a true story. In other words, he told this member of the parliament, the Knesset in Israel, that he was the child that his parents wanted to abort. Are there any thoughts?
Yeah, my feeling is so different. I feel that that the soul doesn't enter the body, the child's body, until it takes its first breath. And that if you abort the body, that's really all it is. The soul will find another body. And I never really believed that the Jewish religion does not recognize abortion as being an okay thing. And that's what I thought. I thought it was strictly a Christian belief that we don't abort.
That is what I thought until yesterday. I assure you, I went up and spoke to the rabbi, and we spoke at length, and he said, no, that's part of the religion. And I did not know that until yesterday. I mean,
I've been going to shul for years, and I've into Judaism to some degree. So I don't know. That's an interesting concept for me.
And he actually well, he was talking about that most of the Western religions, and when I say that, people say, well, you mean in China and India is not Western religion? Most of the Western religions get their code of ethics and all that from the Old Testament. So the Old Testament was used by the people in the New Testament. After all, who were the people who wrote the New Testament? They weren't Christians. Basically, Jesus was Jewish, and the people that he surrounded himself with was really of the same faith. So they got their ethics from the Old Testament. There's one other story which I happened to read when I was there. You know how your eyes sometimes fall on something. So I was going, not that I really read the book when I'm at the service, I kind of just there listening. But my eyes fell on this one page in which it talks about Jesus. His disciples were entering the city of Samaria, and he sat by a well where there was a woman. She was getting some water, and he said, my good lady, could you please give me some water from your bucket? So she says, well, first of all, you're a Jew, and I'm a Samaritan, and Samaritans don't get along with Jews at all. So why should I give my water to you? And he says, but the water that I give you is the water of life. And you're talking about the water from a bucket. He says, what God gives is the waters of life. That kind of reminds me of the ocean and the wave. So you want to remember the difference between form and content. She's talking about the form of the water coming from a well in her bucket, and he's talking about the content of life and love and peace. He said, what I give you is holy water. And so I just wanted to share that. I was very moved by that entire experience.
So-
I want to just mention too that, abortion's only been around as long as birth has been around. And the poorest people in the world are children. And the second are women. And that's not God's plan for his people. We've lost our way, and we've been losing our way for a really long time. But I feel like abortion is a symptom. It's not a problem. It's a symptom. Smoking cigarettes causes lung cancer. Lung cancer is the symptom of smoking. And abortion is a symptom of disrespect and lack of love. And it will continue on every level of our society as we go into more lack of love and more insensitivity. I understand where it came from. I understand where the religion came from. But there's an awful lot of lack of love in religion too, and especially lack of love of the mother of the children. And until that ends, abortion, whether it's legal or not, will be around. So it doesn't make any difference when it begins. Yeah. It begins with lack of love. And lack of love meaning a woman feels she has to get an abortion because there's lack of love. And the couple thing, if I read statistics correctly, that rabbi's story wasn't where abortion happens. It happens there, but it's not as common as it is for single women and young women to be buying pills. So I can understand in a religious situation where a rabbi can say that, no, if have this child, don't worry about lack, money, housing. You will be provided for. But in the regular situation, the lack of love is so profound that, you know, children are not seen as valuable. So it's a one discussion when you're in a religious community, and it's another discussion when you're in no community and you're separated, which is what we all are. And that's why this fight is not one of love at all. We know what love is, and we know how women love their babies. Many women will die for their babies. And yet, you know, there's no respect. There's so little respect within the general population. What's going on in Iran right now, those women would rather die than be there. So as you know, as you're looking at abortion, it is a symptom. It is not a problem. And we need to continue to look at that and fight for it.
Yeah, I just want to comment one thing where you said there's not a lot of there's not always a lot of love in religion. I totally agree with you.
Mhm.
And the reason for that is that religion separates people. I
Right.
mean, I realized that when I was 16 years old. I used to be Orthodox Jewish, which means very, you know, religious. And I came to a place where I said, wait a minute. If God is the God of all the people, how could he just be the God of the chosen people? That didn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me when I was 16. I became an agnostic for at least the next 15 years. And when finally I was 32 years old, I had a spiritual awakening, and spiritual has nothing to do with religion. And, you know, I just, yeah, I totally agree with you that religion separates. It's just that simple. Lynn, I see your hand is up.
All this talk about sin. The funeral I'm doing is for a woman I know from NAMI who killed herself. And I remember when I told my group, and one of the men said she only pretended to be religious. She wasn't a real Catholic. And, you know, he was very angry. He was very angry. And in the course, I don't know, I don't know where it's from, but I know Ram Dass also said it. He says, he said of death that the time is not our own, regardless of the age or how the body left, how spirit has left its form. It doesn't matter. It's not our choice, birth or death, quote unquote, birth or death. And this woman, I don't condone suicide, but you know, not everybody who tries suicide, you know, gets away with it, gets killed. You're looking at one here, well, thank God, you know, but this poor woman, you know, what she was going through, she wasn't getting any better. She was getting worse and worse, and she just stopped wanting help.
Well, yeah, you can understand, but the course is very clear. Suicide is not an answer, period. I mean, so, you know, just, I always speak from the course's way of saying. I just want to say that before we close, Ivana asked, could you please repeat the wave analog, Cindy? So maybe.
I did.
Oh, you did?
We
Oh, I'm
took
sorry,
care
I
of it.
missed it. Okay,
Could you repeat it one more time?
all right.
When the wave realizes she is the ocean, all her fear must vanish.
Writing that down.
It's Thich Nhat
Yes.
Hanh.
Yes, you're returning to source. This is the whole Course of Miracles is the Course says you never left source. Nizagadatta from India says, what a joke. You never left home, but you spend your whole life trying to learn how to get back home. You never left. So when the Course says you're the dreamer of the dream, that's exactly what it means. The Course is very clear. You dream that you're in exile, that somehow you've been kicked out of the love of God, you've been kicked out of heaven and you're trying to get back in by being good. You never left. You never left.
I know we're past time, but I do.
Yeah, okay,
wanna
I understand. Yeah.
Can I just make one general comment on the last 10 minutes of conversation? Or
Sure.
15? And it's just this. One of my favorite concepts in A Course in Miracles, which I never heard anywhere before, is this term ego propaganda. And it for me, it reminds me that we've been way too tolerant of mind wandering. And so much of this conversation that we just had was about belief and disagreements and defending positions, and none of that is useful in truth, right? The more we get involved in what's right and what's wrong in politics and in religion and different things, while we're in A Course in Miracles or a non-dual or truth meeting, the more we're not talking about what joins. And so I was just watching, and I was feeling it inside. I have my own, Cindy, the personality, has her own opinions, her own beliefs, and to speak them into this group, there would be some that agree and some that don't agree. And when you're having an opinion where some agree and some don't agree, then all you can know for sure is you're not speaking with the Holy Spirit. Like you're literally in a space of feeding egoic propaganda, which really wants you to debate. Only the ego debates. Only the ego sees conflict. And so it becomes an interesting dilemma of how to be with all of that space. And it just reminds me when all, at the beginning of COVID, when Black Lives Matters was hitting everything all over the world, there were all these protests. And my daughter listens to me and we know each other. And I refused to say out loud, Black Lives Matter, right? To me, it's a political statement. It's not a statement of love. And I wrote an email and I talked about it. I'm not going to talk about it again, but there was some conflict, not with me, but with people trying to force me to say something that I felt was, I'm sitting talking about extending love unconditionally. And my daughter is she's at the protests, cleaning people's eyes out. And she and I had this conversation. I told her what was going on. She said, but Black lives do matter. I said, all lives matter, but you didn't say that out loud, did you? I said, no, because both of those statements became political. All I'm doing is teaching love. I'm teaching to step back and state that when you're feeling angry, when you're feeling in conflict, it's time to do a Rico cruise and just love on everyone, And so it's just, I felt the beginnings of a lot of, this is my opinion, it's different than yours, here's why I'm right, here's why I'm wrong, and all of that, by definition.
I'd like to just say one quick thing. Lorian put up a comment in the chat. She says, making the error real. I don't see any errors at all, to be honest with you. I made this kind of like your coffee on Wednesdays. Some of you and I will attend tomorrow morning's coffee at 10:30 that Cindy runs. And anything that's said during a coffee is always fine. There are no rules. There are no rules as far as I'm concerned. But if you think it should be, leading a Course in Miracles group is a little bit different than doing a coffee. A coffee is everybody's their own teacher. That's the name of this group, Finding Your Own Inner Teacher. I'm very alert to egos knocking heads against each other. But to me, I see everything is always Okay, I really do. I'm really into what can you not accept if you knew that everything that seems to happen, all events, past, present, to come, is gently planned for you by one whose only purpose is your good. I want to just mention that Shakti, Katerina, Maggie, thanks to Cindy, reminds me, tomorrow at 3:00. As
No,
a
it's not,
bonus,
it's not an open, it's anyone, it's only for people who are in the living in
no,
oneness group.
people who paid, right? People.
No,
It's
not
not open to
tomorrow.
people. It's not open to
No.
people who paid $127. No?
No. No.
All right.
It's a pre-record, and so people in the living in oneness group were invited to sit in a pre-record.
The pre-recording. Okay, I'm wrong.
Is it going to be on Living in Oneness platform?
No. Are
We
you in
get the-
living in oneness?
Well, yeah, and
Yeah,
so but
so
I got the
the-
message that she was going to be on at 3.
Right, so you have to attend, if you have the replays, then you'll be able to watch the replay over and over
Okay.
and over again,
All
right?
right, thank
Tomorrow, she's pre-recording the bonus. So the Living in Oneness group was invited to attend the live pre-record.
All right,
The living in oneness group.
Yes,
and I got that. So I got that invitation.
I didn't know there was a distinction between living in oneness and, okay.
Can I ask what the affirmative prayer group is? I've heard that for the first time this evening.
It's, is there anyone here who wants to share with the affirmative prayers? Anyone?
When is it? Is there a link? You know,
Well, actually, it's something that's sponsored by Maureen Muldoon. And she has a four Mondays in a row workshop on learning how to do affirmative prayer, which
Oh.
apparently came from Science of Mind and those
Yes.
people.
yeah, I'm one of those people, but okay.
Yeah, well, I can't think of the name of the guy that started Science of Mind, but
Ernest Holmes. Yeah.
Ernest Holmes. Okay. I mean, Maureen is so good at prayer. I mean, my prayer is thy will be done. Her prayer is wonderful. So I figured I would like to pray like that too.
It's a 5-step prayer.
Okay.
Yeah.
all right.
Separate platform?
What?
Platform? Well, obviously it is, but is that an open forum, the affirmative prayer?
Well, it's a class. We already went through 3 sessions. The 4th session is the last session coming up. I'm sure they'll do it again. If anyone wants to know more about it, just ask or ask anyone who's part of Maureen's group. You know, like Joni. You know.
I'm aware of that. I'm aware of the affirmative prayer. It's a 5-step prayer, basically. God
Yeah.
is. I'm one with God.
Very good. You got it. God
Acknowledgement.
is.
Oh, I'm a licensed practitioner. I'm one of those people, as you call them. I'm one of those people.
Very good. God is step 1. You got it.
One. Yes. We are one with God. I'm one with God. That's step 2. And then there's that realization. Recognize the
Suma,
truth, and
That's
then giving
that's
thanks.
it.
And then I know.
That's it.
That's how I pray.
I can send you some more, Zuma, which I will.
No, I'm aware. I'm one of them. I'm one of those people that you refer to.
Okay.
All right. I'm
Could you
gonna
provide me with
officially-
could you send me a text?
What?
Who?
I'll,
Or a chat?
when you have a few minutes, I'll tell you the story. I'm not gonna write it all out. But let me just do this. Here we go.